Hello, Carl here with Sustainability Theory News. We're over at insteading.com. They have an article, 5 Ways to Prevent Plant Disease. So, of course, you're probably familiar with normal pests, which are insects, but diseases, they can be a pest of a different sort. Many plant diseases are either fungal or bacterial in nature. So, because of that, and of course, there's viral diseases as well, but sanitation is usually the best place to start. But first, let's go with the order of their tips. Make sure you're planting in the right place. It should have some pretty well draining soil. Of course, there are some plant varieties that love that moist clay-filled soil, but most of them don't want to be saturated at all times. It can lead to root rot, stress out the plant, leaving it more susceptible to other diseases. And also talks about avoiding compacted soil. So even if you have some good sandy soil with a little bit of clay in there, if you compact it, it's going to ruin the way water moves through it, otherwise known as the soil structure. Check out your soil conditions. Check out those pH levels. If you're growing plants in soil with the wrong kind of pH for those plants, they're not going to be able to absorb as many nutrients, thus leaving them more stressful and more susceptible to disease. Ideally, you want to lower the amount of stress the plants feel, so that includes providing the optimum growing conditions in which they prefer. Watch when you water. If you water plants at the end of the day, which can sometimes help some plants if it's really dry and hot, to help relieve the stress, but it can leave them susceptible to disease because the water will stay on the leaves and not evaporate quickly. And of course, moisture is necessary for many fungal and bacterial diseases to develop. Keep the garden clean. So you want to, well, they also talked about this in other places as well. Keep the airflow going. Keep the plants that have some dying and dead roots or dying above ground growth, trim that up. So there could be adequate airflow around each individual plant and in between the sections of different plants. You don't want to leave any diseased plant material lying around. In fact, you might not want to compost certain diseased plant material. You might just be better off burning it, turning it into biochar, which is of course a great soil amendment. But many diseases, especially the tomato diseases, they can spread through the soil and through the compost if you don't heat it up properly. And another tip, especially with tomatoes or any other plants or trees you're going to trim, sterilize your trimming shears in between each plant because they can spread from one plant to the next. And speaking of plants, make smart plant purchases. They talk about trying to find pathogen-free cuttings, certified disease-free plants, and they do exist. Oftentimes they will be, I don't want to say laced, but covered in chemicals at their inception. They would take a cutting, which is a clone of a plant, and dip it in some sort of pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, not herbicide, but fungicide, that sort of thing, to kill any sort of systemic diseases. But that might be for the best. It'll prevent diseases from popping up later in the plant's life when they do experience stress. Of course, if you want to read more about this, I will link to this page in the description. And if you'd like to see more news headlines like this, subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.